Well, to begin with, a quick welcome to everybody who is on the call. The film for this week is Ship of Theseus, 2013 Indian film, and it is directed by Anand Gandhi and produced by Sohum Shah, who has also played, who has also acted in the same movie. Um, Ashwin came across this movie, and I think it's a gem. Um, it talks about, yeah, sorry, I'll just admit. Okay. So it talks about life, death. It talks about continuity of life. So basically, the story is an amalgamation of three separate stories. It has three leads, and each one of them lives their own life. But towards the end of the movie, we see them coming together through a common connect. Uh, we begin with the photographer, right? Who has had a infection to a cornea and who has lost her eyesight. And the second story revolves around Maitreya the monk. And we end with the stockbroker, who are played by el-Kashif, Neeraj, Kabi, and Sohum. As the title suggests, the film alludes to the Theseus paradox, and I think the first scene of the movie starts with one second. Can you all see my slide shifting? Yeah, I think so. Um, the first scene starts with the Theseus paradox, wherein they talk about how the ship needed repair and it was replaced part by part until a point of time when not a single part of the ship belonged to the original ship. And the question here is it then the same ship? And the second paradox that arises is if all the parts of the original ship were utilized to rebuild another ship, which of them is the original Theseus ship? So it's a great movie. It originally premiered in the Toronto Film Festival in 2012 and later on screened in India in 2013. It also went on to win an Academy, sorry, no, it went on to win an award at the National Film Awards for the Best Feature Film. So to start off with, anybody would like to give your opening thoughts on the movie? Shrish, if you could start off and then maybe everybody else can pitch in.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. So, like Anand Gandhi himself I said about this movie that he thought this movie was a perfect representation of Satyam Shivam Sundaram. That is
Mhm.
the pursuit of truth, the pursuit of art, and pursuit of justice. And yeah, it makes perfect sense. It does actually. If you go to see the
Right.
the first of the three stories was the one which was very artistic, you could say, because the camera angles, the sceneries they used were all beautiful. Even though in the next two stories also the same camera angles were used, but the first uh, story was beautiful in regard to the art. But the second story had more to do with philosophy. Some very good philosophical questions were asked, and also they left us with some open-ended questions, which made us think after we went through the story. And the last story, of course, was a very good, ribbon on the present. It joined all the three stories together and gave us a beautiful climax.
I agree. Anand Gandhi, in one of his interviews, also suggested that he came up with this story while he was nursing his grandparents when they were sick, and it took them about 2 to 3 years to actually bring it to life, right? Because nobody was willing to promote a story with such a deep philosophical thought and something that is not generally liked by the Indian public. And he has gone on to mention that this film has a niche. It does not cater to everybody. You either love it or you don't understand it, right? There's no middle ground. And that was the major reason behind it not being so popular among the Indian crowd. But over the years, it has found its audience, it has found viewers who have taken to the movie, who have loved the movie, and it is going strong till today. Maybe you can get right into the movie and discuss each story one by one. So we start off with this young Egyptian photographer Alia, who um, who has lost her eyesight due to a cornea infection, but that makes her pick up the camera, right? She mentions that uh, she started taking pictures only after she lost her eyesight, and it gave her more perspective and it gave her depth and meaning to life. Uh, her her eyesight, her loss of eyesight is not a barrier, and she has a boyfriend who is supportive and who encourages her and who helps her with her photography. And we've seen this scene in which she can't physically see her pictures, so she gets them converted into pieces like this so that she can touch and feel them, and that's how she interprets her art. There are there was this scene once, right? So she has lost a sense of eyesight, but she relies on sound, she relies on smell, and that makes her an excellent photographer. Does anybody have anything to say about this?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I'll. Okay, yeah, someone else speak.
No, no, Diksha, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say that what I really loved about this movie was the simplicity and just, usually movies have giant sets and they show stuff that we really do not always relate to. But this movie, especially Alia's part over here, just them fighting in the kitchen and her talking to her mom on FaceTime and stuff was just so realistic and it was so relatable. Just, oh, like, wow, I do this in my life. And it's, yeah, it was just really relatable and pretty.
Hmm. Anybody else?
Yeah, so the Alia story was one of the most striking things for me because definitely all of Anand Gandhi's films are very heavily dependent on visual metaphors. But I felt that Alia's story was more of it just because she literally couldn't see the world and she had to depend on all her other senses. And but when she gets her aside, like she throughout her story we see that she always repents not having an eyesight and feels that her art would have been much better had she had a good eyesight, but then her perspective totally changes when she gets an eyesight. And at the end of her story there is this scene where she's sitting on the bridge and her lens cover falls into the
Hmm.
water. And I feel somewhere it's a metaphor for that all these all these years she had a lens or a cover on her eyes, so she had to depend on her other senses. But with the camera lens coming off, that cover also has come off, and now that she can see, she realizes that she can never put that cover back on, and her art isn't going back to what she was. So
I agree.
I feel that.
Mhm.
So yeah, that is what I found very striking.
Out of the three stories, I think most of us would agree that Alia's story is the one that most directly connects with the title of the film, or the Theseus paradox, because she loses her eyesight and she takes up photography, but like Shravani mentioned, she always has that craving to get back her eyesight. Eventually, she does get operated, and she gets a cornea transplant. And there we can talk about a part of her being replaced, like how the parts of the ship were replaced. But what we see after her transplant is initially she goes through her pictures and she actually gets to see them, and she's happy, she celebrates. But over the next few days, she tries to go back to her usual life, tries to take pictures, and she realizes that she doesn't have that knack anymore. Her eyesight is back, but her skill of photography is somewhere not as good as it was before. She realizes that maybe her limitation was one of her greatest strengths. her lack of eyesight may have driven her to capture the essence of her pictures better. And then here, like we can see in this scene, she tries to put on her blindfold and tries to relive her blind life, right? And like Shavi mentioned, towards the end, there is this scene in which the lens falls off. And yes, this is a metaphor to her the lens when you compare it with the lenses of her eyes, and she lost it. So this story was really really moving, compared well, as were the other two. And we can we can take quite a few learnings from the movie, right? Anand Gandhi's film, I think this was one of his first films, and like we've seen with his films, he's somebody who leaves you with something to think about. It's not a movie that you watch for 2.5 hours, have entertainment, and forget about it, right? There's always a message. There's always something that you take home. There's always something that makes you think about his movies, and I think that's the entire specialty of his films. And as Diksha mentioned, it's a simple movie. It does not have fancy star cast. It does not have a fancy setup. It's basically shot in Mumbai. It's based in Mumbai. There were a few scenes in Stockholm that we can talk about later, and the cast was pretty minimalistic, right? Um, and all of it, going through Anand Gandhi's interview, you can, if you've been witness to that, he talks about how how the cast of this film were purely by accident. He met Alia. Sorry, he met Alia's character at a film festival and shared his thoughts about the movie. And she jumped at it and said, "I want to do this." Sohum Shah himself too. It was purely by accident. So this movie didn't have a great budget. It is something that was shot uh, with a simplistic idea. They just wanted to put it forward. Soham Shah has also mentioned that how when he was producing the film, he didn't have any great ideas for the film. He just loved the concept, and he wanted to bring it to life on the screen. And they didn't expect the film to do so well in the international film festivals, or to earn money. And it has been a great film. Anybody else wants to come in, or maybe we can move on to the next part of the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. Just
Yeah,
before we, yeah, okay, Diksha, whoever, sorry. Yeah.
yeah. The fact that the what I love about Alia is that she's not limited by her lack of vision in any way. She goes around Mumbai. She roams around alone. She's independent. She comes back home. She takes pictures. There's nobody with her, and she wants her photography to be as good as a normal person with eyesight taking them. At the end of every day, she makes him describe the pictures, and she's like, they aren't any good. And he says, you know what, they're great. But she's like, no, they're great if they're taken by a blind person, but for an actual person they're not as good, and I don't like them. And I don't want substandard photography. I want it to be as good as. She's not limited by her lack of vision, and she always has this hope that she's going to get it back. When she talks to her mom, she's like, we'll see Denmark someday, or we'll we'll see this someday. She has this hope that she'll get it back and she'll get her eyes back. So that I love that hope in her. She's a really positive person, optimistic about her life in
Mhm,
general.
mhm.
That's what I like about Alia.
Sheesh, you want to come in?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this scene actually. In this scene, Vinay is describing the photo to Alia, right? One important, like the director used a very what you say standard thing actually, but it gave a lot of depth to this scene particularly. If you see in the whole scene, they actually don't show the photograph to the audience also. So even we are put in the shoes of Alia. Even we are supposed to imagine it. Even we are supposed to, okay, this might be the lighting, this might be the way the swans are, or this might be the way the lady is throwing the water. And then, yeah, it goes on. And then we get, what you say, we get an incentive to have thought about it, because soon afterwards, when she gets her eyesight, we are shown the photo. It's a very small, subtle thing, but Anand Gandhi has used it beautifully in this story.
Mhm. I agree. Like you mentioned, right? We are put into the shoes of Alia, and we it may not be to a great extent, but we are made to visualize the picture and see it through her perspective, right? And when she finally regains her eyesight, there is this scene. Yes, this is the picture that he was explaining to her about, and she just doesn't like it, and she says, I don't want it to be there. But Vinay finally convinces her to to keep a copy for memory, and there is a smile on her face when she sees the actual picture. So maybe her eyesight changed perspectives for her. Diksha, you wanted to say something?
No, no, I didn't.
Okay. Okay, does anybody else want to come in, or maybe we'll move on to Maitriya's story?
I think we
I
should
guess
move on to the next story.
Okay, right. So Maitreya, to begin with, is this monk. Um, this not explicitly mentioned, but through his prayers and through the way he goes about his daily life, he is a Jain monk who is the main thought behind the story is he's fighting for the rights of animals against these pharma companies who he believes are putting the animals in inhumane conditions and torturing them in lieu of research. And he wants to fight a litigation. He wants to stand up for animal rights, and he believes in doing no harm to people, and that is very well seen in this scene when he just enters the court, and there is this centipede, right? And it's just missing being stepped on people, and he picks it up with this piece of paper and he puts it back on a leaf. uh, that just shows that how much he cares about everything around him, how much he cares about living beings. And that is one of the teachings of the Jain culture, I believe, doing no harm, even to insects or even to the smallest of animals. They believe in giving equality and they believe in equality and human conditions for everybody, be it ants or be it insects or be it humans like us. And there is this like throughout all three stories, there is a titular, there is a protagonist, and like it's consistent with a couple of other Anand works. Is there is this side there's this sidekick, or there is this second actor in the movie, and here it is this young lawyer who starts off with questioning Maitreya's logic. He questions him a lot, but throughout the course of the story, we come to see how much Maitreya ends up influencing him and how much his learnings make an impact on the lawyer. In this scene, he's seen asking him if it was a worm's karma to lie there and gets crushed, and Maitreya explains to him about how he's standing for the cause. And there is this scene, one second, yeah, there is this scene that follows it, in which the pharma company person, the representative, is trying to convince Maitreya to drop the lawsuit, to drop the case, and he'll be happy to donate to his charity. But Maitreya stays strong on his belief, and he says, no, I'm not going to take money. I truly believe in my cause, and I am going to fight it out. Does anybody want to come in here?
Uh, Anisha, as you said, even I had observed this. So I think Anand Gandhi tries with this whole sidekick kind of
Mhm.
character. I feel like Anand Gandhi tries to portray a duality in every person. So generally, the second person who is there with the main character, it seems like the person is talking to themselves and their own inner thoughts. So if you see, generally both these people have slightly, I won't say contrasting entirely, but slightly opposing thoughts to each other. So it's this inner dialogue that generally people have with themselves rather than with other people, and I think it helps to build the story of the character. Again, with action. So if you would see that all the while when Maitreya is either fighting for the rights or when he's suffering and he's in a lot of pain, we see that he's throughout surrounded by chaos. I think one of his starting scenes is when he's walking through heavy rains, and then there will be the court scene, and even when he's in the ashram ceremony. So it is until then that he's like leaning towards one particular side, being against animal testing and all these things. But then comes that one point where he reaches like the ultimate state of pain and suffering, where he just can't take it anymore. And then there is this scene of just rustling grass, which somewhere I
Yes.
think brings a lot of peace. Uh, in contrast to the chaos that has been happening all this while in his life, and that's where his decision changes. So I think it's a great way of showing that he has gone from uh, I won't say from one side to the other, but he has slowly changed his perspective towards things. So yeah, that is what
I
I
agree.
wanted to point out.
Well put. Uh, I would like to give a special mention to this the scene of the rustling grass. It is said to be a symbolism for how he finally gives in, and now there is hope for him to get cured, and there is peace. And this is the when I first saw the film, the rustling of the grass, the scene looked quite out of sorts for me. It wasn't in sync with the rest of the film. But when I thought about it later, and when I listened to a few of Anand Gandhi's interviews, it struck me that the scene was intentionally put in order to give that symbolism and for the artistic effect. Right? Anybody else?
I think in the movie, especially in this scene, in sorry, this story,
Hmm.
the fact that whenever the monks were walking, they made it a fact to keep it like a really long scene, because usually you'll see in movies where people are walking, just they'll show 2 steps and then they'll move on to the next scene. But here they actually showed them walking, and it's so in contrast to our daily lives because we don't really walk anywhere nowadays. And watching them walking for so long like made me feel tired in like on the inside, even though I was like on my bed. But I could feel the tiredness of them just walking so much. So I think that was really well shot.
And there is this attention to detail also. If you've observed all the scenes in which they are walking, whether it be on the Bombay roads or whether it be in this scene, all the monks are shown barefoot, right? This is a characteristic of the Jain monks that they generally walk barefoot, however rough or harsh the terrain be. And the attention to detail is really great here, that everywhere they're seen walking barefoot. We have another 10 minutes. I think we may be running short. So, anybody else wants to come in here? Or we have the third half of the
Yeah, I
story
guess
also
if
to
we are
talk
running short on time, we better move on to the next one. We can
about.
try something else
Okay.
for the second one.
Oh, there is this. Okay, before we move on, there is this scene that I wanted to talk um, about how much effort has gone into the film. When you see him at his end stage of liver cirrhosis, Neeraj, yeah, he lost so much weight. Exactly. He's said to have lost 17 kilos for this scene in order to make it realistic, and in order to do his best as an actor. He actually lost 17 kilos, and it is said that he couldn't work for the next few months because of the tremendous loss in weight and the weakness that came along with it. But that just shows to prove how much effort has gone into making a good film. Right. So this is the third story. it has a more modern and uh, today's generation kind of setting. There is the stockbroker played by Sohum, who who is shown to be somebody who you know is deeply invested in his work. He carries that. He has the side chick with him, and he carries his computer everywhere. Be it just even we've seen that even after getting the kidney transplant, he's seen working in the hospital with his computer setup. So he's somebody who's deeply invested in work, and he's not to start off. He's not the philosophical. He's not the emotional kind, but that changes over the course of the story, right? Mm, Before I talk too much, maybe others can also pitch in, the ones who've not spoken until now, maybe because we have just over 6.5 minutes. Does anybody want to comment, or maybe I can carry this forward? Okay, Shrish,
Yeah.
do you want to come in here and talk about this part of the story?
Yeah. So yeah, as Anish said, this is about a stockbroker. And I just like how Anand Gandhi is very simple with his screenplay, especially. He doesn't shove anything down the audience's throat. Like most filmmakers these days, they tend to give us information like offhand. Sorry, sorry for that. Offhand and just like not make it very thoughtful. Like for instance, we don't know that. The character of Sohum is actually hospitalized for what reason. We don't know that he had a kidney transplant until this scene. We just know that he was hospitalized, and then there's no information given as to like, okay, this guy had got a kidney transplant or whatever. And then in this scene, he asks about the patient, and then he finds out that his kidney has been stolen, and then he feels a sort of guilt. You can see the expression on the actor's face, and then the audience is given the chance to put one and one together and say, okay, means okay, Soam's character had a kidney transplant, and then he doubts whether his kidney is actually a stolen one. And that kind of cinema you don't get to see, at least in the mainstream nowadays, and you got to respect him for that.
Right, right. Okay, so before we continue, maybe I have 5 minutes, and I don't think we'll be able to do justice to this movie by running quick and just going through it. So after this meeting ends, maybe we can start another meeting. I'll put in the link and continue for another 10 to 15 minutes. It won't take long, just so that we do justice to the film and everybody gets to express their opinions, right? So we'll continue. Don't worry, we are not in a hurry. Everybody else can come in and express their thoughts. So, like Sheesh mentioned, this is another realistic, the typical Bombay life in which he is totally obsessed with his work, while his grandmother is somebody who takes interest in literature and writing, and she's the philosophical kind, right? And initially you see during the initial scenes when she's admitted in the hospital that she's trying to change him. She's trying to tell him that uh, you are running after money and that's not going to get you anywhere. You need to do good, you need to contribute to society, and you need to make sorry. Yeah. She says that society should benefit from your existence and you need to make an impact. And he seems unfazed. He has an outburst, and he doesn't quite understand what she's trying to convey to him. But later on, when we talk about how, yeah, he has suspicions about the kidney, and how he goes about to do his bit in order to help the man with the stolen kidney. There is a change in thought. There is a change in perspective, and his beliefs have changed, right? Anybody wants to come in?
I just wanted to add here. I feel like a lot of people tell you that hey, you should contribute to society and all of that. But it's really hard to do until you find that one cause or that one thing that you relate to the most. I think that's what he found over here. He found what he relates to, what he actually feels for, and that's what caused the change in him.
Hmm. Yes, that was drastic, right? Because it hit him deep. He thought that it was his kidney because when he asked his sidekick here, Samir Kurana actually, who plays Manu, if I'm not wrong, that's his name. He is humorous. He is somebody who is pragmatic, and he is somebody who brings in the humor and the moments of laughter in the film. So he asked him to go check on the patient and find out. So when he is told that the patient has lost his kidney, he asked him if the blood group matched, and Manu tells him that yes, it is the same blood group. So that brings fear into him, and he feels he has done harm. He feels he might be the recipient because the date of his transplant also slightly overlapped with the day. So yes, so we were at how Manu is the fun, the humorous guy who adds the element of laughter into the film. And again, continuing with the main actor side chick kind of the kind of concept that Anand Gandhi is known to be fond of. This is again a really nice story, and in one of Sohum Shah's interviews, he has gone to mention about how a lot of the scenes in this movie were spur of the moment. There were so many improvisations. There was a scene in which yes, this scene in which he wipes his face with the sari there. So in one of the interviews, Soham Shah mentioned about how this was not at all planned. They were recording in Mumbai, and it was the summer months, so there was a lot of heat, and Samir just goes there and wipes his face with the towel, with the sari. And there's another scene in which there's another okay, I don't think I have it. So if you all remember, there was a scene in which he talks about how the laborer is like abhi ye ceiling pe rehta hoga. So that dialogue was not planned, it just happened because Samir is just a lively guy, and it added such a great effect that they decided to keep it in the movie. So yes, anybody else wants to talk about this part of the story? Um, okay, so I'll continue. So they try to find out, right? Again, this scene in which the old ladies in the chawl are seen playing housey. So that kind of really struck me as he's just trying to show the true the everyday life, right? He's just portraying everyday life. This is not something that may have been especially scripted for the movie. It may be something that is a regular daily feature in the chawls, and he just portrayed it so beautifully. Like all the other scenes, a lot of them just look to be natural. They don't look to be scripted. They don't look to be something that has a lot of direction that's gone into it, and that makes the movie stand out. That makes it simple, and the simplicity is something that is so wonderful about this movie. And there is this scene in which he gets stuck between the two walls, and there is a light moment after that, and that really got me laughing. Yes, so he keeps trying his best in order to help the laborer and get his stolen kidney back. But this is the first time they meet, and when he offers him some money, the laborer thinks that it is Soham who has taken his stolen kidney and who's trying to pay his way off it, and he gets emotional. He manhandles him and he abuses him, but then Naveen tries to explain to him, saying, "No, I really want to help, and I've come here out of goodwill." and I don't have any alien naturals, and I'm not the one who has stolen your kidney, right? And he promises to help him, and that leads him all the way to Stockholm, and they eventually um, meet the recipient of the stolen kidney, and here, this scene talks about this really important um, social, how do I put it? I'm at a loss of words. This is a racket that is rampant, right? It may not be so obvious, but there have been so many instances of these shady places, of these shady hospitals, in which there is there are kidneys or there are organs that are stolen and then sold off to people for money. So the spin tells him that he really didn't know that he received the stolen kidney. To him, the doctors and the other people involved, the agents involved in the rackets, had mentioned that there is a man who's needy, who's in need of money, and he's being paid handsomely for his kidney, and he has no idea that it's stolen. Right? So Naveen and his friend in Stockholm, they go and they try to explain to him that no, the kidney was stolen and they really want to help. Right? And to Naveen, it's as simple as, he just says that, okay, if the kidney is stolen, you have to return it. But is that something that anybody else would think? That a kidney has, saved them from end stage disease, and it may be the reason why they are alive today. And we just like, if I had a stolen kidney, I would return it. So does anybody else want to talk about this? About how he's so casual in talking about returning the kidney?
Yeah, I do see. I wanted to talk about the story in general. Being the, see, like you said, the attention to detail in this film is brilliant. Like uh, Soham's character, he takes the laptop and the computer wherever he goes, right? So he has it when he is hospitalized, and then when his grandmother is hospitalized, then also he has it. But when he goes to Sweden or when he's in search of Shankar, he has just left it. It's like a very beautiful way of saying that when he's gone into this public seva or service to Shankar, he's forgotten about his duties as a stockbroker and is fully inside it. And again, beautiful way of he's just showing it rather than just saying it, and that's just beautiful.
Diksha, Shravani?
Yeah, so I feel that there is like he stockbroker, he realizes that there is a lot of similarity between him, like his previous self, and what the laborer is feeling now, because ultimately when he realizes that this his kidney was stolen, happy with like financial settlement rather than just the whole seriousness behind all of it. And I think that is what the stockbroker was before this. He was so into the materialistic world, and now that he has changed his perspective, he realizes that most of the world was like him or is like him, especially this guy whose kidney was stolen.
That's right, that's right. And he's so disheartened in the end that he has tried so much in order to help Shankar, and towards the end, he believes that he has convinced the guy in Stockholm that okay, he'll be arranging for a new kidney or finding a donor for him. And when he talks to him on the call, and Shankar's just like, he's giving me 6.5 lakhs, while the price for a kidney in the market is 30,000, and I'm happy with this deal. I don't want a kidney. He's like, kidney kisko chahiye? And all of his efforts have gone in vain. He has traveled halfway across the world in order to help Shankar, and he didn't have anything to gain from it. He just did it out of goodwill. He did it because Shankar's plight touched him, and despite doing so much, at the end Shankar just says, I'm happy with my money and I don't want my kidney back. And I think that must have hurt him, and that these are the things that may to somebody else may deter them from taking steps in order to help others in future, because he did it for the person, and despite all his best efforts, in the end it just all went in vain. Avantika?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he feels much more grateful towards his kidney donor after this whole labor incident than he did before.
Mhm.
Because,
Yes,
like, kind of, he has understood the whole thing behind it and how much it means to someone. Because he's gone through this whole journey of, well, getting justice for one person, but has ended up having this self-realization. So I
yes,
think,
it definitely has made him appreciate it more, and he is
yeah.
much more thankful to his donor. And we see him reach out the NGO and try to get in touch with the donor's family. Avantika,
Yeah, I
you have it.
yeah, I agree. I think if he hadn't gone to Stockholm and done all that, and he was his old same stockbroker person, he wouldn't really have thought twice about going for the whole, the donor that whole session that they had. He wouldn't have gone for it. He would have just not appeared or something. The Also the fact that he was ready to go to court. He's like, we'll go to court, we'll fight for it, however long it takes. We'll get your kidney back, we'll get you a kidney, we'll get you money, whatever you want. He was ready to do that for this stranger that the only thing they both had in common was they both uh, got a kidney transplant, or in Shankar's case didn't have one, but he was ready to do that for him, and I think that's really commendable. And in the end scene, he tells his grandmother that it was all in vain, and she's like, all this happened because of you, and I'm proud of you, and maybe you're like my grandson after all. So I love that scene, that ending scene, that they both sort of make up and accept each other, and they know why they both are, how they are. That's my favorite part of this.
He definitely, has a change of perspective and he starts appreciating things more towards the end. Coming to the end of the movie, there's a scene in the car in which they're driving to the museum where all the recipients of the organs have been called, and he has this conversation with Manu, in which they talk about the paradox of Theseus, but indirectly. So he asks him that everybody's got a part of the person's body, and will that make them a different person? And Manu has this, layman's way of putting it. He says, I think you all can see it on the screen, that he says, replacing the parts would change the person, does it? And they have this conversation, and they don't have a definitive answer. And towards the end, Manu says, "Can I accompany you into the museum?" Because he too wants to see, and he too wants to experience how it must feel to be amongst people who have all received a part of somebody else's body. And he leaves them off at the museum. Entering the museum, this is when we see all the three stories coming together, and we see the connect, right? Because looking at them independently, they are distinct stories in their own. They have they are so much full of meaning and emotion when they are standing alone. But when all three of them come together, we see an amalgamation in this in the final parts of the movie, wherein you know all the recipients come are brought together in the museum, and they are shown a movie or a short video of the deceased. And before we talk about the video, anybody else wants to come in? Diksha?
I think the conclusion just made me really happy. The fact that everyone was alive and they all met together. And I know a part of everybody's life. What really about the movie, it was, so I just want to address two facts here. The fact that everyone's like, when I get sick, yeah, I get a transplant. But you know how commonly we say that, oh, you need this transplant, you need that transplant and stuff, but no one really realizes the gravity of the situation, that where are these organs coming from? Like, people need to actually donate, people need to be organ donors. That's how you can tell people that, hey, you need a organ transplant, and you will get one. But we say, like, we see so many medical shows, and everyone's just like, yeah, we'll give you this transplant, that transplant, you need this transplant, you need that transplant. But you need to give organs also. It's just like, I don't understand how people are, like, sometimes so ignorant and it just is, people just feel like the organs appear from a random place and then they get donated and transplanted. And also here the movie is so beautiful because they're showing that these are real people. Like, also you can relate to them, like I said in the beginning, that they've shown real lives, like Alia's life, the monk's life, and Soham's life. And by just giving them that organ, you're allowing them to live that life. And it's so beautiful because these are real people, and it's just like real people living real lives that you can relate to, and that's been made possible because of one organ donor. So yeah, that just really touched my heart.
Right, right. The- a single organ donor has managed to save 8 lives here, right? And in between all of the, the philosophy and the thesis paradox and the emotions of the movie, I think we forgot to talk about this theme, the theme of organ donation that the movie revolves around. And I'm glad that we are getting a chance to talk about it towards the end. And it just goes to prove, like Diksha mentioned, how important organ donation is and how much of a difference you can make to people's lives if you choose to donate. And we'll talk about that. Yes, we have. Before that, I think I would like to talk about the video that they are shown. So we are told that the deceased, the person who donated the organs, was a cave explorer, and it is believed that his videos that are being shown are an analogy of this concept by Plato, in which he talks about how human society and people are imprisoned in a cave, and they they believe they constantly watch their own shadows, and they never really get out of the cave, right? And he's trying to enlighten people, and he's trying to motivate them to stop being prisoners of their own caves and to get out of it. um, there is a slight if you all have paid real good attention to movie, you all may have noticed that the end scene, we can see there is a shadow cast upon one of the rocks towards the end of the video, but we never really see his face, and that draws us to believe that he never really got out of the cave. But by donating his organs to such magnificent people, maybe that may have been a way to get out of the cave and in order to make a difference to other people. So he may have not made it out, but maybe his organs will help others get out of their caves. Um, okay, I think we've talked about the entire movie. Anybody else wants to come in and talk about anything that we missed out, or anything that they really liked in the movie? Hmm. Okay, Shrish,
Yeah,
do you want to talk about
tell
anything that
me.
we missed out?
Yeah, see, I felt the whole movie was a complete, what you say, it was good in all the departments of movie filmmaking. It was not only a very good script, a very good thought, the execution was also very good, from cinematography to the dialogues. It's very interesting to note that the shloka which Maitreya uh, sings is actually written by Anand Gandhi himself. It's not actually a scripture wala shloka. And the whole religion also is a fictitious religion actually. It's an amalgamation of Jainism and Buddhism, and you can also see some aspects of Gandhiism, I guess, like his what you say, his attachment to non-violence and everything. But whatever, Anand Gandhi also does one thing very beautifully, is he keeps it as simple as possible. Now all these facts about the religion being fictitious, or the device which Alia uses for finding out the colors, that's also actually a fictitious device which Anand Gandhi just add in the movie. But he leaves out all these points because it's not necessary. It's always a hallmark of a good filmmaker when he leaves out things which are not necessary. Other filmmakers, I feel, tend to just load us with facts and show how brilliant they are and how they've managed the situation. But I feel this is the most beautiful way of showing the uh, nitty gritty details of filmmaking.
Right.
I just wanted to add a bit here. like to what Shreesh said, it was like not an idealistic movie, because a lot of times we also watch movies to feel good about life and people, that everything will be fine in the end, and how everything is very ideal. But this movie showed, like, it was so real. The fact that the guy, that Soham said that, hey, I'll get you your kidney back, even though he didn't know what it means, and even obviously Shankar didn't know what, like, it, you can't just like give a kidney back or something, because it's a little difficult. But the fact that they actually addressed that in the movie. Shankar said that, hey, I honestly needed my kidney just to be able to work, to earn money, and be able to give my family food and just shelter. But now that I'm getting money, I don't need my kidney, because like people can keep my kidney. I just want the money to be able to live, and that is something that almost anyone kind of would have done. Because everyone's just behind money, right? No one really. Everyone's going. I mean, if your kidney's already gone, you're not going to be like, okay, I don't want money. Give me my kidney back if you're getting money for free. So the fact that they actually kept that in the movie, instead of making it super ideal and making him get a realization that, no, I miss my kidney and I want my kidney back. The fact that he's like, I just want money, I don't really want my kidney back, was so real, I feel. And just that, was really, it was so well written and thought of.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I would just like to add to what Shreesh said about the whole the simplicity and leaving out unnecessary details. So this is one movie where, despite not knowing enough about the characters, you still are very involved in their life. You feel for them, despite not being not knowing everything, the causality and everything of whatever happened. So I think that is something that he has really worked on well, and I think the credit goes to the actors too in that sense. And another thing is about the Plato's cave, in which it is said that the prisoners, they are chained to the walls of the cave, right? I think since their childhood. So they just see the shadows of whatever is happening behind them. So they just have this one perspective. So I feel after the organ donation, the cave explorer is seeing the world through the perspectives of 8 different people. So which makes him a whole new person. And I think that somewhere relates to the sheep of Theseus, whether it's a whole new person or whether it's the same or and revolving around that whole idea.
Right. So the question here
And
is,
I just want to add one more thing. The fact that Anand Gandhi showed us a different perspective to atheism also, because usually people are just like, oh, atheists, these people just want to like live their lives. They don't want to be spiritual or, actually devote themselves to something that matters. These people just want to like do avara masti and all. And the fact that um, the monk was an atheist, but he still believed in something, shows like a different view to atheism too.
he actually explains the concept of atheism to the lawyer, right? In which there is a scene in which they are walking around the roads, and the lawyer asks him, "So you don't believe in gods? Are you an atheist?" So he kind of explains to him how his non-believing in God is not atheism. uh, Sorry for that. My throat is really giving way. So yes. Anybody else wants to come in? Avantika? Is she on the call? Okay. So yes, I think that's about it. It was a great movie. And unless anybody else has anything to add, then we can conclude. Anybody else wants to come in?
Yeah, Anish, just like before we end, like this whole movie is about the ship of Theseus philosophy, right? So Anand Gandhi left us with this question: whether if you separate the parts and put it together, is it uh, the same thing or not, right? And I feel that Anand Gandhi himself answers this question, his belief at least about this philosophy, in one of his talks. He says that the part of the whole, like a whole is a sum of parts, but
But the
it's not just
interaction
a sum
between,
of parts. Yeah, exactly. It's the interaction between them. So he just put that whole thought into this beautiful movie, but then he didn't give it any bias. He still wanted it to be open-ended and something about which people should talk about. He could have easily put his bias on it, saying that this is what happens, because it is his belief that there is an interaction, therefore it's not the same ship of Theseus, right? But he didn't do that, and I think I'm giving him too much, like I'm praising him a lot in this discussion, but I feel it's just not enough. His genius has to be applauded.
This movie definitely was a hidden gem, and I'm glad that we finally came across it, and I think it's the first time that most of us are getting to watch the film. I'm glad it happened, and since he left us with a question to think about, maybe we can leave ourselves with another question to think about, wherein a lot of people have spoken about this earlier. It is said that the human body cells are continuously regenerating, right? So some regenerate quicker, but some regenerate over a long period of time. So the approximate average is around, like, they say, the whole like all the cells in the human body regenerate, or most of them at least, regenerate within around 8, 7, 8, 9 years. So uh, drawing a parallel to the thesis analogy, if we keep replacing the parts in the ship, if that becomes a new ship, then do we become new people when our cells regenerate? Okay, I'm really sorry about this. My throat is uh, really giving me. Diksha wants to have a discussion on karma. So yes, we can take that forward to the group. And before we end, since the movie revolved around organ donations, and since we do belong to the medical background, I don't think this would have been it would be appropriate to end our session without having a small tiny bit about organ donation. I'm just waiting for my last slide. Um, okay, why is my slide not playing? I think it's hanging. Okay, so I just want to talk about, like, you know, we I truly believe that all of us should pledge our organs. Yes, it is a personal choice, but after seeing the movie and you know um, realizing how important organ donation is, I believe that all of us, if it is possible, should donate our organs. It might save 5, 6, 8 lives, and in a way, we may continue to live in another person's, or a part of us will continue to live in another person's body. Yes, in case anybody is interested, these are the details of the State Organ Transplant Organization at GMC. I just put it here because I think it would not be appropriate to finish the session without talking about this a bit. So that's it. Thank you so much to everybody who has joined us today. Thank you, Diksha, for the appreciation. uh, Anybody else wants to come in or talk about it? Else we can end the movie. Oh, sorry, the discussion. Mm, okay, then. I think there's only three of us left. Chalo, we can finish. Thank you so much, Diksha. Thank you, Shrish.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.